Okay, students. This is supposed to be a lecture done in 2 weeks. So I'm going to do all the content at a stretch. So by now we have discussed in the previous two videos. So we have been discussing about the major approaches and models of change management. So by now we have discussed about Levin's change management model and McKinsey's 7S model. And also in the second part of the video, we have discussed about Kotter's change management theory and nudge theory. So now we are going to discuss about ADKAR model. So ADKAR model is that the ADKAR model or theory of change is a goal-oriented tool or model which makes it possible for the various change management teams to focus on these steps or activities that are directly related to the goals it wants to reach to. So what is done in ADKAR model is that it allows the business organizations, the change management teams to focus on the steps given in ADKAR model, and they can align the particular goals that they want to achieve according to these particular steps. The goals as well as the results derived and defined using this model are cumulative and in a sequence. So it is said that the goals that are the goals as well as the results derived and defined using this ADKAR model are cumulative and in a sequence. So if you are going to adopt ADKAR model in order to implement a change, you have to be mindful whether you are following the steps or stages in the model in a sequential manner. This means that while using this model, an individual must get each of the outcomes or results in a certain orderly fashion so that the change can be sustained and implemented. So as I told you before, suppose that if you have planned to use this ADKAR model in order to implement a change, so as individuals, you have to be mindful as you are going to have these results in a certain orderly fashion so that the change can be, in order to have the change sustained or implemented in a successful manner, you have to be mindful whether you are going to have these outcomes or results in certain orderly fashion. And the model can be used by managers of change to find out the various holes and gaps in the process of change management so that effective training can be offered to employees. So in this model, why you can use this model is because this model can be used by managers of change to find out what are the loopholes and gaps in the process of change management, so that if you have uh, if you have spotted a particular loophole or gap, you can take use of effective training and it can be offered to the employees in order to successfully implement the change. And there are some of the things that you have to be mindful when you are if you have planned to adopt this particular model in order to successfully implement change. So what are the things that you have to look into? To provide help and support to employees to go through the process of change or transitioning while the change management is taking place. So you have to, if you have planned to adopt this particular outcome model, you have to ensure that you are providing help and support for the employees in order to go through the process of change. So that is a must. And to diagnose and treat the resistance shown by employees towards change. And also it is important for you to diagnose or to identify if there is a resistance coming from employee side. You should be able to diagnose the particular resistance. And next, you should be able to come up with successful and efficient plan for the professional as well as personal improvements of employees during the change. So when the change is happening, you have to come up with certain plans, an efficient plan for the professionals who are involved in change in order to improve them individual wise during the change process. So when it comes to ADKAR model, each of these uh, letter in the ADKAR word, ADKAR, each of these letter stands for a particular stage. So the abbreviation A is for awareness, D is for desire, K is for knowledge, again A is for ability, and R is for reinforcement. So we'll look into what each of these stage means. So awareness is of the need and requirement for change. So first you have to make your employees aware as to why you need to change. You have to convince as to why this change is important. And the D stands for desire, to bring about change and to participate in it. So when you are making them aware why it is why it is important for them to implement this change, you are going to have some facts in place. So those facts uh, should enable the desire in the employees to embrace this change. So maybe if you are going to implement a particular automated system for a process that has been happening manually, you can say that during the awareness session, you can say that once after this particular automated system is in place, at the end of the day, you would be in advantage, because once after we have this particular automated system in place, we would have more customers coming in. So at the end of the day, the profit might maximize. We can maximize our profit, and you would be having a part of that. We are going to share the profit among you, so you would also be in advantage. And also, since we are going to have this automated system in place, it would be more convenient for the employees itself. So likewise, you have to have the desire you need to have the desire from the employee side in order to embrace the change. So you have to communicate the things in such manner that the employees desired would rise. Okay. And knowledge of how to bring about this change. So how you are going to implement this change? Maybe by having a meeting, you are going to discuss first with the key stakeholders with respect to change. You are going to discuss as to how you are going to implement the change. After that, you are going to have it communicated to the rest of the employees as to this is the way that we are going to implement this change. These are the phases. So at the end of this month, we are going to have another meeting, and we are going to discuss whether the particular milestone is achieved. Likewise, you are going to have the knowledge as to how you are going to bring this change in, and ability to incorporate the change on a regular basis. So you need to incorporate change on a regular basis. So if you are going to incorporate change in the regular basis, you have to focus on the ability of the employees, also their competency level. So you have to look into that, and if they are not if they don't have the enough capabilities with them, you have to be mindful as to whether you are in a position to you have to give training sessions for them. And reinforcement, to keep it implemented and reinforced later on as well. So this reinforcement is also important in order to keep it going, and in order to sustain the change, this reinforcement is important. Now, just like we have done in the for the other models that we have discussed, can you think of some of the benefits and drawbacks of ADKAR model? So please pause the video and come up with some of the answers on your own. Okay, I hope you have come up with some of the benefits and drawbacks of ADKAR model. So what would be the benefits? So benefits, first benefit would be the model offers the capability of identification and evaluation of the reasons why changes made are not working and why desired results are not being obtained. So since we are going to have this ADKAR model in place in order to implement a particular change, it allows us to identify and evaluate the reasons why particular change has not worked. and why we have not reached the desired results. So that's a particular benefit of the ADKAR model. And also the model makes it possible for one to break the changes into different parts and then figure out point where change may not be as effective as planned. So here we are going to uh, break the long-term dream into several small milestones. So when we are in the pathway of having the complete change implemented, in the short milestones, you can check whether we have achieved the short-term milestones, and if not, we can look into why haven't we achieved the desired results. Okay, and the third one would be it offers both business dimensions of change as well as people dimension of change. So here in ADKAR model, they are not focusing only about the business dimension, they focus on both the business dimension as well as the people dimension as well. All right, so those would be more like the benefits of the ADKAR model. So what would be the drawbacks of the model? I'll tell you one. I hope you have listed down some. So since this is a sequential model again, so that's a problem. So you have to make sure that you maintain the sequence. That's a particular limitation of ADKAR model. All right. Uh, so I hope ADKAR model is clear for you all. Now we'll move into the next model. Okay, so the next model is Bridges transition model. So when it comes to Bridges transition model, it was developed by William Bridges, who is a change consultant. So this William Bridges, the founder of Bridges transition model, is a consultant who is renowned for change. And this theory came into the eye of public after it was published in the book of Managing Transition. So once after he has published a book called Managing Transition, only this particular theory came into public. It became public. The specialty of this model or theory is that it concentrates and focuses upon transition and not change as such. So the difference when it comes to Bridges transition model, when we compare it to other change management model, is that this Bridges transition model specifically focuses upon the transition, not on the change. So there is a difference between transition and change. That is very subtle, but you have to understand this subtle point. What is the difference between change and transition? So when it comes to transition, it is more internal. When it comes to change, it's something that happens to people even when they don't realize it. So transition is something that happens to people when they goes through the change. So when they goes through the change process, this transition is something happening for the people internally. So change can be instant, but transition through it takes some time because it's a people related process. So in order to change, when you are going through the change process, this transition is a particular activity that is taking place internally inside the employees. I hope the difference between transition and change is clear for you all. Now we are going to discuss what are the stages in Bridges transition model. The model focuses on three main stages that are given as follows. We'll look at what each of these stages is with the explanation. So the first stage is ending, losing, and letting go. So when people are first introduced to a change, it may be you, it may be me. So when we are introduced to a change, we may enter this stage that is marked with resistance and emotional discomfort. So as human beings, I told you earlier also, we are very much scared of change. Okay, so there is always resistance coming because of the emotional discomfort. Some of the emotions experienced at this stage include fear, resentment, anger, denial, sadness, frustration, and most of all, disorientation. So the reason why we get this emotional discomfort when a change happens is mainly because of the fear, resentment, and disorientation. So one has to realize that he or she is coming near to a certain end so as to accept new beginnings. So in the ending, losing and letting go stage, it is important for the individual to be aware that some things are coming into end, so we have to accept the new beginnings. The next stage in the Bridges transition model is the neutral zone. So this is the stage of uncertainty, impatience, and confusion. So in this stage, the individuals, the people would be very uncertain, they would be very impatient, and they would be full of confusion. This stage can be considered as the bridge between the old and the new, when people are still attached to old but trying to adapt to the new. So it would be in this stage, in the neutral zone stage, it would be more like the bridge between the old situation and the new situation. So it's like I am very much attached to the manual process, but I am also in the process of uh, getting myself adapted into the new automated system as well. But in my heart, I am attached to the old situation still. This stage is associated with low morale and reduced productivity, and one may experience anxiety and skepticism as well when going through this stage. So this particular stage, when you are going through the neutral stage, the people would be associated with low morale and reduced productivity. So their productivity with respect to getting themselves adapted to the automated system would be relatively low when it comes to the neutral zone, because they are still very much attached to the old situation, the manual process. Okay, clear? But despite this, the neutral zone may also include innovation, renewal, and burst of creativity. So even though they are very much attached from their heart to the old manual process, in this neutral zone, there would be innovations, renewal, and burst of creativity also happening, because they are in the neutral zone, in the bridge in between the old situation and the new situation. The last stage in Bridges transition model is that the new beginning. When the neutral phase is passed through support and guidance, the stage of acceptance and energy enters the picture. So when the neutral phase is passed, when you have passed the second stage, is passed with the support and guidance, the stage of acceptance and energy enters the picture. So after a certain limit, after you get the guidance, after you get the support, you feel a bit comfortable in the new scenario as well. So that is meant by the new beginning. At this level, people begin to embrace all the change and understand its importance. So at this particular, the new beginning stage, they feel that true, what they have told us is true. It's important for us to embrace this change, because it's important from the profit aspect as well as from our efficiency and effective aspect as well. They are beginning to build the skills needed to reach the new goals and may start to experience benefits of the change already. So now they have begun to build the skills needed in order to reach the new goals by the at the new beginning stage. And also they may start to experience benefits of the change already. They have the reason why they have started to build the skills is because they have already started experiencing the benefits of the particular change that is going to happen. It is associated with high levels of energy, new commitment, and a zest to learn. So this particular, the new beginning stage, the last stage in Bridges transition model is associated with high levels of energy, new commitment, and they are thriving to learn. All right. So I hope this particular Bridges transition model is clear for you all. So I'm not going to give you answers for, even though I have given you the answers for what are the advantages and drawbacks of each of the model when we discussed about the first 5 models. I'm not going to give you answers for the Bridges transition model. That you can come up with your own when you have an idea as to this is the Bridges transition model. You should be getting an idea. All right, these are the set of advantages and these are the set of disadvantages with associated with this particular Bridges transition model. So I'm not going to discuss that you can have an art on. And now we are going to look at the final model, Kubler-Ross 5-stage model. Okay, so we are going to look at the final change management model in this module that we are going to focus on. The Kubler-Ross 5-stage model was developed by Elizabeth Kubler-Ross after she pursued her research on the dying and death. This model is also thus known as grief model. Since this model was pursued after her research on dying and death, this model is also known as grief model. Grief model and Kubler-Ross 5-stage model is the same. As it talks about, the reason why we call it as grief model is because it talks about various emotional states that a person goes through when he or she discovers that he or she may be nearing their end. So the reason why we say that we call this particular Kubler-Ross 5-stage model as grief model is because it discusses about various emotional states and stages where where an individual would go through when he or she is discovering a nearing end. The model can also be applied to other life situations such as loss of job, changes in work, and other less serious health conditions. So it's not only for the implementation of IT or change implementation in business organizations, but also this model can be applied to other life situations such as losing of job, changing of the workplace, maybe a less serious health condition. Likewise, this model can be applied for those scenarios also. The model helps to understand and deal with personal trauma and has been widely accepted worldwide. So this model is a worldwide accepted model. The following are, now we are going to discuss about the stages associated with Kubler-Ross 5-stage model. Okay, so these you can read. I have already explained. So these are the 5 stages in Kubler's Ross model. Kubler-Ross 5S model. First one is denial. Denial is the first stage of the model and is a stage when one is unable to accept the news. So I told you people are very much reluctant to or resistant to change. So at the very stage, as per Kubler-Ross 5S model, the first stage is you are going to deny the change. You don't like to accept the news. It is like a buffer or defense that a person tends to create due to the inability to absorb the news. So it may be because you don't like to absorb the new change. One may experience shock as well as sense of numbness during this stage, and this happens because every person shows resistance towards change and may not want to believe what is happening. So I told you earlier also that since people are very much reluctant and resistant to change, they might not want to believe what is actually happening. And the second stage is that anger. When the news actually gets absorbed, when then the first reaction is usually that of anger. So once after you get, all right, this change is going to happen, you get angry. Okay, so finally you have absorbed the news. Yes, it's true that we have to embrace this, but he or she might, the individual might react in anger. The denial converts into anger when one realizes that the change will actually affect them and is for real. One starts looking for some to blame during this stage. So people keep on blaming because this change is going to happen, wonder what's going to happen for our jobs, will we be terminated. Likewise, they react in anger. Okay, for different people there can be different ways of directing anger, so how they went out anger would be different for different people. Third one is bargaining. The next step or stage involves bargaining, so to avail the best possible solution out of the situation circumstance. So the third stage is bargaining. So what is happening in bargaining is that it involves bargaining so as to avail the best possible solution out of the situation or circumstance. So in this stage, basically they do bargaining. Bargaining is simply a way of people to avoid ending up with worst case scenario. So what they try to do is that they try to bargain. If we do, if we embrace this change, what would be the what would be the advantages for us? So we need this and that. We need an incentive for in order to embrace this change. So once after we go for this particular training, we need to have an incentive. Likewise, there would be a lot of bargainings happening. And the fourth one is depression. When one realizes that bargaining is not working, he or she may end up getting depressed and may lose all faith. So, this fourth stage in Kubler-Ross five-stage model is depression. So, if they realize in the bargaining stage that bargaining is not going to work, they would end up depressed because they lose all faith. This is the phase when one is not bothered by anything and moves into a sad, hopeless state of mind. So, since there's nothing they can do with regards to this particular change happening, uh, they, even though they tried bargaining, nothing works. So they go into a depression states in their mind. There are many ways to observe or identify depression, and some of them include low energy. So this would be the high time that the employees, once after you try to automate something, there would be some time, for some time, even though you are going to have, the reason why you are going to have this particular new system in place is to increase the productivity, but to a certain time, for a certain duration, you won't see that productivity because the people itself are very much demotivated to embrace the new automated system only for some time. So there would be symptoms like you would able to see low motivation, lack of excitement, happiness, that would be witnessed. The last stage in Kubler-Ross five-stage model is acceptance. So when one realizes that there is no point in being depressed or fighting change, he or she may finally accept what is happening and may begin to resign to it. So at the end of the day, when they realize that there's no point of being sad, there's no point of being depressed, this change is finally going to happen. So the only way to be happy is by accepting it. So at the end of the day, they would accept it. There are different ways in people handling this stage. While some may begin to explore the options left with them to make the most of the situation, others may feel that no option is left them and may just resign to uh, destiny. So most of the people, how they accept the change is that they would be in agreement with the management, all right, we need to work on this, or else some, even though they don't like it, they would start working on that. So that is meant by that is what is explained through the stage called acceptance. So I hope the five stages in Kubler-Ross five-stage model is clear for you. Again, for this model also, I'm not going to give you what are the advantages and disadvantages. Now you all are in the final year, so since I have given the explanations along with advantages and disadvantages for 5 models, now you should be able to come up with what are the advantages and disadvantages for the final 2 models. So you can come up with the advantages and disadvantages. Who knows, it would be useful for you from the examination point of view. So with that note, so we'll check whether you have achieved the objective. So we have discussed so I have done this as 2 lectures. So actually this is planned for 2 lectures. Even though I have done it at a stretch, I'm going to display the 2 lectures in 2 different in the courseware as 2 weeks. So there would be 3 parts. 2 parts would be in one particular week, and the other part would be in the second week. So check whether you have achieved these objectives. Uh, so now you are in a position to explain and evaluate the change management models. These are the models: Levin's change management model, McKinsey's 7S model, Kotter's change management theory, nudge theory, ADKAR model, Bridges transition model, and Kubler-Ross 5-stage model. So I hope it was clear for you. So until I think we would be meeting after Sinhala Hindu New Year. So until that, please be safe and enjoy the New Year.